been confused about how to say it's 7:45 or even telling the time of a past or future event in Spanish? Expressing the time correctly, from scheduling appointments to recalling special moments, is crucial in Spanish. Because of that, in this video, you are going to learn how to tell time in the past, the present, and the future. I'm also going to share common expressions that natives use to tell the time, and I'm going to show you some of the most common questions you can use to ask for the time. We're going to start with the present, and we're going to take this tense as our foundation to see the elements that we use in Spanish to tell time. So to tell time, we need the verb ser, the articles la and las, and obviously numbers, so we can tell the time. So in Spanish, we have two structures. One is a singular structure, es la, and we only use this one when the time is 1. For example, creo que es la 1:20. I think it's 1:20. We use the plural form son las with the rest of the hours. Son las 5:45. It's 5:45. And just like in English, we can tell time just with numbers, but if we want to sound more natural, we're going to replace those numbers with some words. And those words are cuarto, quarter, media, half, mediodía, midday or noon, and medianoche, midnight. And over here I want to take the time to debunk a myth about telling time in Spanish. I have seen many textbooks and courses making such a big deal about using y between the hour and the minute. For example, creo que es la 1:20. In daily life Spanish, we native speakers omit this e, and we just say es la 1:20. However, we are going to use y if that letter is part of the name of a number. For example, 35, 37, 38. Before we move forward to another tense, let's check some basic prepositions that we use when telling time. These prepositions are de and a. Let's start with de. We are going to use de to refer to parts of the day. De la mañana, de la tarde, de la noche. And notice that parts of the day in Spanish are always feminine. On the other hand, we are going to use a to express the time when an action happens. Let me give you some examples. Son las 8 de la noche. It's 8 at night. Notice how in this example, de is helping me clarify the part of the day that I'm referring to. The next example, mi vuelo sale a las 7. My flight leaves at 7. Juan llegó a las 3 de la mañana. Ay, Juan. Vengo a mediodía. And with these examples, notice that we're only going to use ser to tell time, but we can change verbs to refer to different activities or events. Okay, so you know how to tell the time in the present. How will you say the time in the past? What tense do you think we use? The perfect or the imperfect? We actually use both, but there is a big difference. Let me show you. Let's start with the imperfect. We're going to use the imperfect to tell time when we're just providing background information, when the time is just an additional detail about another past action. For example, era la 1 cuando me dormí. It was 1 when I fell asleep. Notice that over here, me dormí, I fell asleep. That's my main action. That's the only action that matters, actually. And era la 1 is just additional information that helps you understand a little bit more of what happened. We also use the imperfect to tell the time of past ongoing actions. In other words, to tell the time of habits and routines in the past. For example, mis clases eran a las 7. My classes were at 7. Every single day, I had to wake up early to go to my classes. Okay, so that means that we're never going to use the period to tell time, right? Not so fast. We are going to use the period, but we are going to use it in a very specific situation. You see, we use the period to tell the time of a specific completed event. For example, imagine it's mediodía, midday, and I tell you, mi cita fue a las 9, my appointment was at 9. This is a single event and it's obviously over, well, because it's 12. Another example, Laura cenó a las 10. Laura had dinner at 10. This is another single event that is clearly over. These are the occasions when we actually need to use the period. So you can choose between these two past tenses, but you need to be careful because there is a big difference between saying los conciertos eran a las 9. Over here, I'm talking about concerts that used to take place over and over in the past. With this type of actions, it's very difficult to know when they ended or when they started. Big difference if I say los conciertos fueron a las 9. Over here, I'm referring to a specific set of concerts. So even though you're allowed to use both tenses, you need to be careful when you choose because your choice is going to impact the meaning of your sentence. Okay, so you know how to tell time in the past, the present. What about the future? In daily life conversations, we use the near future, ir plus a plus infinitive, to tell time. For example, van a ser las 2, va a ser la 1:30. And notice that after ir plus a, I'm going to still be using the same structure that I use with the present tense. Ser plus my articles and the numbers to tell the time. And I want you to check this example again. Van a ser las 2. Over here, I want to give you a pronunciation tip. When native speakers speak at their normal speed, they're not going to say van a ser las 2. No. These three words, van a ser, they are going to blend due to the speed. For example, van a ser las 2. And of course, you can also use the near future to tell the time when an event is going to happen. For example, voy a llegar a las 3:15. I'm going to arrive at 3:15. When it comes to telling the time in the future, we can also use the future simple only if we want to tell the time more formally, such as in airports, stations, and things like that. However, in daily life Spanish, we can also use the future simple to make conjectures about what time is. For example, imagine that I don't have a watch and I'm waiting for my telenovela, which starts at 7. So I could go and say something like, ¿Ya será las 7? Is it already 7 o'clock? I'm sorry, I just need to see if Fernanda is going to propose to her. So now let me show you some native expressions you can use to sound more natural when telling time. These expressions are going to focus on the remaining minutes until the next hour. The first one uses menos. Es la 1:20. It's 20 to 1. Son las 6 menos 5. It's 5 to 6. Check the next structure. Son cuarto para las 9. Son 10 para la 1. Son 20 a las 3. In this context, para and a have exactly the same meaning and the same purpose. You can choose whichever makes you feel more comfortable. I personally prefer to use a because it's shorter. And the third structure is faltan a. Faltan 20 a la 1. Faltan 5 a las 6. Notice that over here, we're using the verb faltar instead of ser. And again, this verb is going to help us talk about the remaining minutes until the next hour. The only limitation you have with these three structures is that we can only use them with the last 25 minutes. So now that you know how to tell the time in past, present, future, and you know some structures to sound more natural, let me show you some of the most common questions you can use to ask the time. The first one is very straightforward, so you want to use it with your friends or very informal environments. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? If you want to sound a little bit more polite, you can say ¿Qué hora tiene? ¿Tendrá la hora? ¿Me puede regalar la hora? And finally, ¿A qué hora es? Notice that this question is using the preposition a, which means that we can only use it when we want to know the time of an event. For example, ¿A qué hora es la reunión? So now that you have all of this information about telling time, I have a little challenge for you. Your challenge is to write a short story about a typical day in your life or an important event you recently had. The key, of course, is that your sentences need to tell time. Make sure you use the past, the present, the future, and the prepositions you've learned so you can put this knowledge into practice. Leave your story in the comments and I'm going to give you feedback if you need it. If you are ready to start practicing your Spanish listening skills, I'm going to leave you a link in the description so you can take this same lesson in my Spanish immersion channel. I'm also going to leave you a link to a guide to telling time so you can see more examples with the structure you just learned so you can get more practice. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please let me know by hitting the like button. I hope to see you soon. Bye!